Hi there, my name is Carroll. I'm going to show you how to create a virtual machine on Microsoft Azure today. I think this is important. I've worked with quite a few people in the past who didn't understand Azure and the intricacies of it, so I think this is a good place to start. In addition, I'll be doing educational videos on Amazon Web Services and cybersecurity as well. Now, as for my background, I have probably 26 years experience in the industry. I've been working with Azure for about 10 years now, Amazon Web Services for a bit longer, I think probably about 11, and I have about 13 years of cybersecurity experience too. And that's responding to ransomware attacks, risk management, security awareness, penetration testing, and everything else. So that just gives you a bit about my background. These videos will be uploaded to LinkedIn as well as YouTube, and at some day in the future, I would like to have my own site where they're stored. But for the time being, just check LinkedIn or YouTube. Now, what we're going to do is create a new virtual machine running Ubuntu, and we're going to launch the virtual machine, connect to it, and then delete the resource afterwards. During the creation time, I'm going to walk you through each option so you know the ins and outs of creating a virtual machine. And at the end of this, we'll go ahead and delete the virtual machine that we created. So to create a new virtual machine, we're going to click on the virtual machines button on the left. Or another way that we can access it is by just clicking virtual machines under Azure Services. Now, if we It's just loading a list of virtual machines for us. Now, if we had any virtual machines existing, they would show up in this list here. So if we had 50 virtual machines, we would have 50 virtual machines that showed up in this list. But this new account, so there's nothing in here. So we're going to go ahead and click the Create button to create a new virtual machine. Now, we see a few different options here. One is for a regular virtual machine. One is for a virtual machine scale set. A scale set is just a group of virtual machines that can scale upward horizontally based on demand. So that's the scope of this course, but I will cover them in the future. Presets are a pre-configured VM designed to optimize memory, capacity, or for general use. So once again, a preset virtual machine, very helpful depending on the environment, but not something that we're going to cover today. Now, hybrid pre-configured and high volumes solutions. So, for example, when it says Azure hybrid infrastructure solutions, that's basically you can have a server on site, you can install Azure Arc on it. You can add the server to your Azure dashboard and perform a number of functions on it, just like it was a virtual machine in the cloud. And you can also gather metrics, diagnostic data from it and whatnot. Very helpful, but once again, out of scope for what we're going to be talking about today. So to create the virtual machine, I'm just going to click on the virtual machine option here. Oh, just give me a sec, that's not working for some reason. Oh, there we go, now it's loading. All right, so it's going to ask what subscription we want it in. I'm going to leave it in Azure Subscription 1. A subscription is generally where you would store related billing resources. So, for example, you might have HR, finance, IT, and then the Azure costs are billed back to each of those departments out of their budget every month. But every company is going to be different, so you will see different setups. A resource group holds a group of related resources. So in Azure, the virtual machine that we create is going to be a resource. The storage account that we create is going to be a resource. The NIC attached to the virtual machine is going to be a resource, all independent. So we'll create a group to store them in. I'll just call it Sean Test VM6 just for fun. and there can't be any spaces in a resource group name. Virtual machine name, generally this would be the host name. So I'll give it the same name as my resource group since we're just temporarily creating it, VM6. And then the region that we're going to place it in is Canada Central. If we look here, Microsoft has data centers all over the world. So we have the Middle East, South America, Europe, more United States locations at the top. And different regions are going to have different costs associated with them as well. So the cost for Canada Central may be completely different to run a VM on than US East 1, or US West 1, sorry. And then for availability options, we're just going to choose availability zone with a self-selected zone. We'll just choose zone 1. I am using a free plan here. So we're going to install Ubuntu, but we will use PuTTY to connect to it as well. And for the security type, we'll leave it to trusted launch virtual machines. And this shows the size. So Microsoft names their virtual machines based on, memory optimization, general purpose, storage optimized. What we have is just a general purpose standard B1. So it has one virtual CPU, 1 gig of memory, and it would cost us $8.47 a month. I've also seen versions of Windows that have, say, 156 gigs of memory, or no, but 128 gigs of memory and 128 virtual CPUs, and they run more like $10,000 a month. So here it's going to show us the disk that it's going to create. We only need the one disk. It's going to be 30 gigabytes. We get to choose the OS disk type here. We're going to leave it to premium SSD. The thing is, you can use standard SSD as well, and it should work fairly fine. And standard HDD is just like a mechanical hard drive. So, in all honesty, you can choose what you need depending on your needs. And obviously, premium SSD is going to cost a lot more than standard HDD, which is how they'll get you in the cloud. And storage is a separate resource, so we'll choose to delete it with the virtual machine, so it gets deleted when we delete the virtual machine. And then you can create another data disk that you can attach to the virtual machine. We're not going to do that here, but it would work perfectly well for use case of, say, file servers. The next tab that we're going to go on to is networking. So it will create a network interface for us. We can see it's going to create its own VNet for us, which is a Microsoft Virtual Network. It's going to create a new subnet, 10.3.0.0, with 254 IP addresses, which works fine. We're going to want to put a public IP on this. So we can connect to it. There we go. That wasn't working. So to create a public IP, we'll just choose the standard SKU. And we'll call it Sean Test VM6. And we'll choose static, routing preference, Microsoft network, zone 1. That's all fine. And there we have a public IP now. Next security group is basic, public inbound ports. If you select none, that blocks anything inbound to your machine. Allowing selected ports, we're going to allow SSH so that we can log in to confirm that the machine has been set up properly. But generally you turn that off in the network security group. And then you can delete public IP, and Nick, when the virtual machine is deleted, we're going to select that option. And accelerated networking is only available with certain types of virtual machines. For our use case here, it's not going to matter. And then looking at the management of it, cloud is nice in some respects because we do have foundational cloud security posture management free plan. So I believe that gives us a bit of attack surface management, vulnerability management, and a few other things. So for identity, we don't need a system assigned managed identity. Microsoft Entra is something we will cover. It's a Microsoft solution for identity and access management, privileged information management, role-based access control, a number of other things, but I'll cover that in another video because it's probably a bit too much for us to cover today. Auto shutdown. Auto shutdown will automatically shut down the virtual machine if it's not in use. So perfect use case for that is at nighttime when the machine is not being used. It can be shut down to save money, so you're not being billed for it. Enable backup. You can back up your virtual machine. This will back it up into a recovery services vault. I will cover recovery services vault in another video, but it's always important that you back up your infrastructure and data, of course. For monitoring, you can enable alert rules, which basically align with when resources are low. Best practice would be to set these up to alert yourself. But in this case right here, I'm not going to. We'll go to the Advanced tab. So in custom data here, this is a script or any other sort of custom data that we want to put in while the machine is being initialized. We can install extensions for the virtual machine as well. Next, we'll go to tags. Tags are good for taking resources so that you can query them. And we have an error on the monitoring tab, which isn't out of the norm. Oh, alert rules not configured, and I have it selected. So I can choose review and create. It's just going to do a sanity check on my configuration here. So we can see it passed the validation. It gives us the price here. And yeah, it's a cent and a fraction of a cent an hour. So it's not too expensive. And then to create it, we can just click create. So since it's a Linux machine, it's going to prompt me to download a private key for it. And we're going to connect to the machine using PuTTY since it's Linux. And we can see here the deployment's in progress. So I'll just modify the key. So what happens is Azure, the key that you download isn't the format that PuTTY accepts keys in. So we just have to convert it to the format that PuTTY accepts. So to do that, we just import the key into PuTTYGen and then choose Save Private Key. I'm going to save this key without a passphrase. Generally, you'd want to avoid that. Sean test VM6. And you'll notice the old extension was PEM. The new one is PPK, and PuTTY can load that. Okay, so we'll just go back here. We'll go to the VM resource, make sure it was created properly. We can see the resource group it's in, its status, location, subscription ID, availability zone, the operating system, the IP address that we assigned to it, the virtual network and subnet, along as quite a few other operations here along the side. Our primary goal is going to be to connect to the machine So we'll just choose connect. And it gives us instructions for connecting via native SSH, but I'm going to use PuTTY to connect to the public IP. So we'll just copy the virtual machine IP address from here, and we'll open PuTTY. I put the IP address of the machine in there, and then to authenticate, we're going to use the private key that we transformed. So Sean test VM6. That's fine, you can accept that. And the default username is Azure user. And I'm logged in right now, so I can open up Nano if I want to. This is an Azure VM, and I can even call that Azure. There, and we can exit. So we can see that the VM is up and operational. We can ping the Google name server if we want. We can see that we're getting a response from Google here. So it has actually been set up properly. So with a lot of cloud items, things aren't always permanent. There's always items being spun up and deleted. So sometimes we are going to want to delete virtual machines and their associated items. So to do that, we can see that we're up here with Sean test VM6. We're going to hit the delete button. We'll choose apply force delete, so it just deletes it if it runs into any issues. And then all of its associated resources are being deleted. So we can see the OS disk it created with Sean test VM disk, and then a proprietary Microsoft naming scheme after it. Network interfaces, Sean test 6161, and the public IP address that I created. So it's going to delete all those resources. Before you delete a resource, you have to select that you've read and understand that this virtual machine, as well as any selected resources listed below, will be deleted. So we'll choose delete. And it'll show us a status indicator for deleting virtual machine here. That'll go away. We can see that it's still running up here. Normally takes a minute or two. And we should be able to go back to the list of virtual machines here in a sec. There, it successfully deleted it now. So if I go back and select refresh, we'll see no virtual machines in the list. There we go. So that's my first lesson on Azure. Follow my LinkedIn. I'll be putting these videos on YouTube as well. And tomorrow I'll post another video on accomplishing a task in Azure. I hope you have a great evening, everyone. Thank you.